Hi guys, I'm Cole. I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, it never gets easier doing this, but this is a pretty special share for me because this is where it all started. 3 years ago, my journey began at a rehab facility up the hill. I'm sure you all know where it is. Like everybody sitting in this room, we've all got our horror stories, and then those have been sober for a period of time have got the good stories too. I have to be honest, my journey has been epic. It's been great. I haven't relapsed, and I am the last person that thought that would be possible. So, sitting here today doing a 3-year share is miraculous for me. Sorry, I'm going to jump around a little bit. Obviously I've got the stories of the things that I did, your typical, I lost my marriage, I lost my business, I took advantage of people, the lies and the deceit, for drinking and prescription medication. Obviously I did the drugs too, but that was more of a binge thing, but my daily fix was alcohol and prescription meds. When I finally went into rehab and went into treatment, it had been years and years and years of drinking, and I never went before because I didn't want to stop. I know that I needed to stop, but I didn't want to. Okay, so I knew that when I finally made the decision to go and to get help, that would be it, because I'm one of those people that if I do something and I do commit to it, I will do it. Just like the drinking. I committed to drinking and I wanted to drink. It's something that I wanted to do. And I did it pretty hardcore. And I lost everything in the process. But I was obviously... There were a lot of contributing factors to my drinking. I don't want to go on too much about my childhood because, to be honest, I had a pretty decent childhood. I mean, my parents got divorced when I was pretty young. And like in all divorces, there's conflict, and the kids get affected, especially if you're very, very young. And I was the eldest, and I have 2 younger sisters. But I think I was a bit more affected by it, and I was affected by it because I was upset with my mom. So I had issues with women. I didn't trust women at all, ever in my entire life. I used to test them, push them to see how loyal and how faithful they would be to me, driving them to the point of literally insanity to try and test their affection for me to see how much they loved me before they would snap. And I did this because my mom had an affair, so I wanted to see, how loyal someone would be to me. It was it was ridiculous, to be honest. So these were very, very negative patterns in my life, and obviously once I'd driven somebody to the point of breaking, I would do everything in my power to try and get them back. I'm very good at talking and manipulating people to get what I want. I can turn it around quite quickly and play the victim. I did that a lot. So sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't work. Now, I didn't understand at a young age what kind of destructive behavior this was. You got to go through all of this and grow up, lose people, get married, have relationships, lose those relationships, get married. That for me was the biggest wake-up call. I didn't do it straight away. I didn't change my ways straight away after I got divorced, but it was coming. The biggest growth, learning about myself and my destructive behavior, came in the years after I became sober. You see, because I spent 23 years drinking solidly. All the decisions that I'd ever made were usually drunk ones. Every emotion that I ever felt, all the relationships that I felt, anything to do with business, were usually masked by or influenced, and the emotions were with alcohol, drugs. Not really drugs with those kind of things, but you go out on a date and you meet somebody. The first thing you want to do is you want to chill out and break the ice so you have a drink to relax. So all of these patterns of what I was doing, everything was always drunk. Before you go into a business meeting, a lunch meeting, or whatever, the guys are having a couple of beers. And you just calm down and you're a bit more confident and you say things you wouldn't normally say. You're a bit more daring. You know, I wasn't a very confident person. Now, after I sobered up and I had to get out there and live life and sober in life's terms, I had to start doing all these things again as a 40-year-old man, sober. Everything it was like a clean slate. Someone pressed, the delete button, Alt delete, and it was just blank. And now I've got to learn how to go out there and talk to people, start dating again, go to find a job, because I'd lost everything. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a home anymore. I'd lost my house. I'd lost my car. I'd lost my wife. She took my son. I spent 4 months in a rehab facility, and, I was going to go for 28 days, and obviously that's what everybody thinks. You should go for 28 days, and you end up realizing that's just enough to clean you up and get all the toxins and the rubbish out your body. And then you have to learn now how to live life sober. So I actually spent 4 months there, 4 months, 1 week. I didn't want to do it. I was scared because I didn't want to not see my child. When my son was 3 months old when my ex-wife left me, and going into rehab, I was trying to hold on to everything that I could, any excuse that I could not to go. So I was using the excuse, I don't want to go there because I'm not going to see my son. But at the end of the day, if I didn't go, I would have probably never seen my son again ever. The first month was quite hectic. And then the second month, I was starting to understand what was going on in my head, what I was learning about this disease. I didn't understand about it. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I was fighting the thought of admitting that I had this problem. It was a massive, massive problem for me. It is not something anybody wants to have. It's a very real thing, and out in public, it's a stigma. The people that don't have it, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are alcoholics and they're kind of functioning alcoholics and they don't actually admit it. There's more of them out there. Since I've sobered up and I'm actually out in the real world doing what I'm doing now, I can pick up these people very, very quickly. The third month for me in rehab was where I started to really get it. I actually enjoyed my third month there, and I was getting ready to leave. And then I was told, you're not ready to leave. And then the fourth month, it was kind of crash and burn, because when I get something in my head and I'm now focusing, I'm moving in a different direction, and I know what I need to do now. I've got the tools, and to go out there, I didn't want to waste any more time. I was a middle-aged man now. I knew I'd lost everything. I had to get back out there. I had to start working again, and I had to try and salvage something. All I wanted to do was go out there and fix all the damage. I wanted to go back to all the people that I'd hurt. I wanted to go back to my ex-wife, and I think most people have felt that. When it clicks for you and you understand the magnitude of the damage that you've done and what you've done, all you want to do when you realize that is go back out there and fix it. And you'll move heaven and earth to do it. But I wasn't apparently ready to go out there. So the fourth month, it was kind of, my head wasn't into it. And unfortunately, for me, I left on bad terms. And this was a problem for me, because I really, when I went into treatment, for me to ask for help, for me to actually put my hands up and say, I cannot do this on my own. And I broke down. I phoned my parents overseas. I'd been lying to them for years and years about everything. And everybody knew that I was drinking. We would be Skyping our conference calls and all the cameras on. And I would say, listen, guys, my daughter's getting charred. Can I just turn off the Skype camera and we'll just talk with, just our voices and everything. And I did that so that I could drink, because I couldn't go for 15, 20 minutes without having a drink. And I didn't want my family to see it, but everybody would say, "Are you okay? You look, your eyes are very puffy, my dad is like, not sure what's going on." But these are the things that I would do. I would lie to them and say, "Oh, my daughter's getting charred," and meantime, I just wanted to be drinking. So when I finally cracked, and I'll never forget the day it was. I mean, I had my little boy with me. He was 2.5 years old when I went into rehab. Now, my ex-wife moved about 5 k's down the road from me, and I lived in an estate. And he used to come to me on a Sunday from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, this for me was so bittersweet because I really wanted to see my child, but I could not drink when I had him. Okay. But I would wake up in the morning. To the point I was before I came into treatment, I was waking up at 4:30, 5 in the morning, and I was shaking, convulsing. And I would run down into my kitchen, and I would open the fridge, and I would down a beer. And I would vomit. I would be sitting on the kitchen floor, and I would be downing it, and it would be coming up and foaming, and I would literally be in tears because I knew I had to get this into my system to stop shaking. But I was trapped, I can tell you about all the lekker parties I went on that built up to me becoming an alcoholic, all the socializing and all the good stuff that all of us did in the beginning. And then the darkness that started to creep in, where now I didn't want to go out anymore because I was already pissed before I went out, and I couldn't drive. Now I get caught in a roadblocks, and now I'm making excuses about, "No, I'll catch up with you Oaks tomorrow." And then now I'm holed up in my home, and I'm drinking and getting drunk there now because, number one, it's cheap, and I'm drinking so much now, I'm spending a fortune. I can't afford to go out anymore. Now I'm weighing up the pros and the cons. Do I drink a little bit and go out with my friends, or do I drink a lot and stay at home by myself? Which do I choose? So it got to that point now where, look, obviously I was unhappy. I mean, my business was failing. When I was married, I was doing very well, and then I met my ex-wife, and things were going great. And then shortly after we got engaged and we got married and she was pregnant, my business hit the skids. And it wasn't because I made a bad business decision, okay, but it was something that nobody could have avoided. But what happened was I had built this elaborate house of cards, trying to keep this image of doing well so that she didn't think that I was in trouble. Okay, so I was lying. And then I was drinking to deal with the stress. And I built this elaborate house of cards, and I started forgetting where I was putting certain cards. And if you put the wrong card in the wrong place, everything comes crashing down. So it caught up with me eventually. And obviously she was suspecting that I was drinking, and it was a problem, and so on and so forth. So when she became pregnant, she asked me not to drink for the entire time that she was pregnant. And I said, okay, 9 months, I won't touch a drop of alcohol. And I did that. I didn't drink. And then my son was born. And the first night, I didn't drink anything. I was at the hospital with her. I sat there until 11 o'clock. Bathed my child for the first time, changed his nappy for the first time, sat there looking at him in the incubator because he was born in the middle of winter. He was 2 weeks premature. And I just sat there looking at this little kid. And I'm like, it was completely surreal for me. And that's my child. I'd made that child, but I was in a movie. I wasn't ready for this. I'm not equipped. My business is going down the tubes. My wife is in a hospital room next door. I've got this new baby. What am I going to do? Because I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills at the end of this month. So anyway, what should have been an awesome experience was great, but there was this horrible, horrible lurking fear behind it all. So I drank. Because when I drank, all that fear went away. I would get a little bit, Dutch courage. I'm going to deal with it. It's fine. I'm going to sort this out tomorrow. I'm going to get on the phone to that oak. I'm going to try and get that contract. I'm going to sort that out. I'm going to phone the bank. I'm going to see if I can refinance this, and all these wonderful plans that I've got going in my head, all while I'm drinking. But then I would drink too much, and I would get really, really pissed, And then I would take my sleeping tablets, and then I would wake up in the morning and I'd be shaking again and doing the whole thing. Anyway, eventually, my baby was 3 months old, and my wife left. And I used to get him on a Sunday, and I would down a beer and then quickly jump into the shower, wash myself, brush my teeth, Listerine, the strongest bloody bubblegum I could find, get there to her place. And I did this because I didn't want to be shaking. I obviously knew I shouldn't be drinking, but I thought if I had one beer, I'd be all right, just to stop the shakes. Get my kid. She couldn't see anything wrong, obviously. Get in the car, go back to my place, and then I would be, looking after my child. And I wouldn't touch a drink until 12 o'clock. Now, you must understand, I couldn't usually go for 20 minutes, half an hour without drinking. And now I'm getting to the point now where this was the day that I decided to come into treatment, because I'd been doing this now my son was 2.5 years old now, so for two years and a bit. He wouldn't sleep when I put him down, because my home was not his normal home. Okay, so when he was with his mom, he used to go into his cot and he used to sleep fine in the afternoon. He used to have a nap. But when he was with me, it was impossible to get him to sleep. So I used to put him in the baby chair in the back, the car chair, and I used to drive slowly around my estate, and the motion of the car used to rock him to sleep. And he used to fall asleep within about 5 minutes. But I used to take a coffee flask, and I used to decanter a quart of beer in there. And I did that so that he didn't see a beer bottle, because these kids, they mimic everything. So if he sees a beer bottle, he'll go, Daddy's juice, when he's with Mom. And I don't want him, because I wasn't allowed to see him if I was drinking. It was in our divorce agreement. So I'm driving around the estate, and I'm going slowly, first gear, and I look around behind me to see if he's fallen asleep. And when I turned around, he was looking at me. He was still awake, but he had this beautiful smile. I've got an incredibly beautiful child. He's got blonde hair like his mom, blue eyes. And he was smiling at me with a look that only a child can look at his father, like that. And at that moment, and I looked down, and I had a beer between my legs, and I just felt disgusting. I was like, that was the lowest point for me, because there's this child looking at me like I'm his hero, and I'm driving around the estate with a beer between my legs. So, I poured the beer out the window, kind of had a little bit of a drizz, and eventually fell asleep. I took him back to his mom that afternoon at 5 o'clock. But now I would rush from her place straight to the nearest pub, because now I'm so anxious, because I've had like 2 or 3 beers that day, where I would have normally had at least half a case by then. And I would drink. But that day, I had said, I'm going to rehab. And I phoned my mom overseas, and I confessed everything. I just said, this is it. I've been lying to all of you. I need help, and I cannot do it on my own. So that, for me, that was breaking point. That was a Sunday. The following Wednesday, I was in a treatment facility. But I drank solidly those 3 days up until I drove into the driveway, because I knew this would be it. I was hoping. I mean, nothing is for certain in this world, okay? But in my heart, in my head, I was going to do this, and I was going to give it my best shot, okay? But I was going to drink until I got there. And my brother-in-law drove me to the rehab facility, and I sat in the car like a total arsehole with my quarts of beers like this, just drinking, looking at knowing. I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing. I even told the rehab facility, when I get there, I'm going to be drunk. And they said, it's okay, it happens, So I got there, and I checked in, but now I'd been taking sleeping tablets for 10 years. And I knew this was going to be a big one for me. Okay, so everything was fine up until about 10 o'clock that night. And I'm in a room with 4 other guys. Some of them are sitting here today. And at about 10 o'clock, I had to rush into the bathroom. Thank goodness the bathroom and the basin, the toilet was very close. And I spent the entire night like that, and it was up for the next 3 days. The toxins that came out of my body, I don't even know. It was just ridiculous. And 3 days of absolute terror. I thought I was dying. that was the 4th of February. For 5 days, they put me on Valium to stop me from having an alcoholic seizure. So my clean date I take from the 10th because I took my last Valium on the 9th. So I woke up on the morning of the 10th and I never took another tablet again. And up to yesterday, that is it. I have never ever put another tablet in my mouth. I have never had a sip of alcohol. One of the things about my when I got to treatment, I mean my physical condition. I mean I wasn't eating. I was weighing like about 75 kgs. My normal body weight is anywhere between 97 and 100 kgs. If I'm eating and working out and training properly. And when I got there, I was emaciated. I was skin and bone. I would rather drink beer for 3-4 days in a row than have a meal. So I was in a shocking state. And when I eventually did come out, I had to get my house in order. And I've always been a very, very active person. Before, obviously, the drinking took over and all of that, I've always been a very active person. So kind of followed this rule of healthy body, healthy mind. I knew I had to try and find a job. And I had to get my house in order. So those are the things that I did. And when I left, my parents were on the phone going, "Are you sure this is what you want to do? Oh, you promised me you're never going to drink again." And I made a promise right there and then, is that I'm never going to make anyone a promise again. Because when I was drinking, I used to promise everybody that I would do these things. It doesn't matter what it was. It could have been a business thing. It could have been meeting them out somewhere. And I used to break these promises. I did not know if I would stay sober. I was absolutely terrified. I was told I was going to relapse because I left, and I was told that I wouldn't see a month. But I know I had something in my head, and I was going to do it at all costs. Okay, so I didn't know. I told my dad, I said, "I am not going to make you a promise, but what I can tell you is that I never want to drink again. As I'm feeling right, what I'm feeling right now, what I've been through, I never ever want to drink again. But I can't tell you if I'm going to last a week or last a year or 10 years. I don't have a crystal ball. You're asking me, I've been drinking for 23 years. I'm about to go out there and see what I'm going to do. I don't know. But I promise you I don't want to." Now, one thing that I have learned in this 3 years, and I have been to meetings after meetings after meetings. I have sponsored people. I've listened to people share. And you will not stay sober and clean unless it's what you want to do. Your family, your wife, your children, your loved ones can beg you and tell you, okay, I don't want to say you, okay, for me, this is what worked for me. Unless I wanted it, it was not going to happen. I watched my wife leave, I watched her take my child, I watched my business go down the drain, and still I drank for another 2 years after that. Until the day I said, I don't want to drink again. I had to reach a point in my life where the pain of drinking overtook the pleasure I used to get. It was not pleasurable for me anymore. It had taken me to a very, very dark place. And that is the only time. And that is because a lot of people have asked me how I've managed to stay sober, how I've done it. Because the first year, sure, it's a goal to work towards. You go, all right, I'm going for my first year. You spend 3 or 4 months in rehab, and then you're going for the first year. It's something to get to. Once you get it, a lot of people relapse in the second year. And I remember when I did my first share here, in my 1 year, what I was going to do, I ended off saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. My next goal is to get to year 2. And when I get to year 2, my next goal is to get to year 3. I don't know if I'm going to do it. But I'm sitting here now, and I don't want to drink again. I didn't make a promise to anybody. I just said, that's how I felt inside. I've been very, very lucky. Look, obviously the first year wasn't easy. I tried to get jobs. I was refused because the first job I went to, they heard that I was an alcoholic. The guy that set it up for me told the owner of the company. And he was like, yeah, thanks for being honest, and everything, but yeah, we just don't have anything available for you right now. But I was under the impression that I was going to get the job. I was told to go and see him and everything was going to be fine and just be honest. He knows you've been in rehab. But I didn't get it. Some people don't understand, especially if they're an employer, they're scared because if you relapse on their time and on their dollar, it's going to cost them money. Of course you want to be open with people, but I've had to pick and choose very carefully who I share this information with, because not everybody gets it. The people here in this room get it because we're all suffering from the same thing. But some people don't understand just how it's a disease like cancer, But it caused a bit of problems for me, and I was unemployed for a year, and eventually, my old boss from 15 years ago, I had this idea that I wanted to do, and he came to me and he said, well, I think it's a fantastic idea, and I'm willing to put the money in for you to get started with this for a 50% share of your company. Now, I was 40 odd years old. I had lost everything, and I was now about to start over again. So I started this little business, and for the first 6 months I hustled. I drove around in a bakkie with a trailer. And it's a humbling experience because, before I lost everything and before alcohol took over, I used to do quite well. I had a lovely house, I had a lovely car, I was doing well, and everything was gone. When I came out of rehab, I was living with a friend. Thank goodness, the guy gave me a roof over my head. I borrowed a car, and that was it. It's a very humbling experience. But I had this one opportunity now to start again, and for me, this is it, because if I screw up again now, I'll be 43 in June. I don't get another shot. The guys that are sitting here that are in their 20s, or some teenagers, or even in your late 20s, you still got it. I have lost 15 to 20 years, and I have had to start over again. I've got maybe another 15 years to make hay, to provide for my child, to buy a home, and to put something in place so that when I'm 65, I'm not relying on other people to take care of me. Because who's going to look after me? What kind of, what government facility is going to help the elderly? And these are the things I didn't think about when I was drinking and carrying on and wasting money. I would spend a fortune every month, And so what I've done now is I try to live just day to day. All I wanted to do was get enough money to pay the bills, get enough money to start paying my maintenance again to my ex-wife, because I couldn't pay it for 2 years. Just put food on the table, and slowly, I went to meetings almost every single day in the beginning, and then I started going to 3 times a week, and for the first 18 months, and then I started going a bit less, It's not for anything other than I was working, sometimes with this new business, I was working 18 hours a day. Luckily, the hard work has paid off, and this little business is growing. I've still got my partner as a 50. He handles all the finances. I do all the operations and the running around. But a very important thing that I had to do here was hand over to my higher power, okay? I didn't know how I was going to do this. I didn't know how I was going to work again, how I was going to start, because no one was going to give me a job. I was a middle-aged white man. That's, that just says enough. You just won't get a job, So I don't have a university degree, but I am a hard worker. So I had to make this count. And I went door to door, and I worked hard, and then it got to the point where I was working these hectic hours, 7 days a week. And now it's slowly building up into something that's tangible. And I'm holding on to it like I'm working harder now than I've ever worked in my entire life, because I've got to work twice as hard as what I did before, because I've wasted so much time. Now, these are the things that you don't think about when you're young. But now all of a sudden, you're sober, you've got a clear head, and you're looking at your little boy, and he's about to go start grade 1 next year, and you've got school fees to pay, and these are the kind of things that didn't mean anything to me, but my case of beers did, you know. Sorry, I just when I was trying to write this, what I was going to say, you know, over the last two or 3 days, the last talk I gave here, they recorded it as well, and I listened to that last night, and I was trying to think to how I was going to start, what I was going to talk about, and one of the things is everything changes from your first year of recovery to your second year to your third year. So what I was listening to, I spoke for about 40 minutes last time, and I was listening to the things that I spoke about, and it's amazing how so much has changed then. You know, it's not the same. Amends are such a huge thing for people and for me, and funny enough, I have actually been able to make amends. What I shared last time, and I said, I don't think my ex-wife will ever forgive me. It might take her 5 years, it might take her 10 years. Well, she has forgiven me, okay? I see my son now more than I've ever seen him before. I do not argue with her anymore. She would not even let me come to her house. She also lived in an estate. She would come to the gate. I didn't know where she lived. I didn't know what her house looked like. She would come to the gate. She would drop my son off there with me. It would be a hello, and I would put him in the car and I'd drive away. Now, I drive in, I go into the home, how's it? I play with the dogs. It used to be my dog, okay? And everything's great, yeah. And they still remember me. The dogs are very forgiving. But what I'm trying to say is that a woman that I hurt and I robbed of a happy family life because of alcohol, it's taken her about 3 years to forgive me, okay? And it wasn't easy. She was the most important person that I had to make amends with because she's the one that I hurt the most. Can you imagine how hard it is for a mother that has just given birth, your child is 3 months old, to make the decision to get up and walk away from you? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, when I realized that, when the penny dropped for me, I was going to move heaven and earth. Now, I try to make amends with her. I try to reconcile with her. Over nearly about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, somewhere around there. And it was no. Obviously, you know, the pain that she felt was just too much. And well done for being sober. Great. Just be a father to your child. Okay. Since then, you know, I was single for 4 years. It was very difficult to date. You know, you go, I meet Tinder and you go out there and you sit down with somebody and you're drinking water. You're not drinking. No. Now, what do you say now? I'm being an alcoholic, raging alcoholic for the last 20 years of my fucking life. And so how are you? You know, you want to grab fucking prawns or something. You know, how do you do this? Because they're just going to run. They're just going to run, you know. But how do you not lie? How do you date again? How do you fall in love again? And how do you get someone to trust you when you've got this hanging over your head? They will find out. You know, honesty is the best policy. So you got to tell them. But if you tell them too soon, they don't get a chance to know what a wonderful guy you are, actually. You know. And if you tell them too late, now they're like, oh, well, you've got me to have all these feelings for you, and now you tell me that you were the psycho drug addict, alcoholic that spent 4 months in rehab. Red flag. What do you do? You know. I had all my stories worked out. I was going to say, well, you know, I liked you so much, and I knew if I told you soon that I wouldn't get a chance, but if you got to know me, you know. Fortunately enough, an ex-girlfriend of mine from when I was in high school, she made contact with me again, and we're still together now. We got back together 20 years later, and we sat down, and because I'd known her pretty much my whole life, I sat down with her and I said, you need to hear this. Okay, because I had my foot in the door already. She knew me from when I was about 10, 11 years old. Family friends, and then we grew up and so on and so forth. And we parted ways in our early 20s. And I sat down and I said, you got to hear everything. Okay, and I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm going to tell you everything. And if you're still sitting here at the end of what I'm telling you, then something is going to happen, something great. All right. And I did. And I told her the whole lot. And I actually made it even a little bit worse, because just in case, because, you know, it didn't help that her father's an attorney and hates my guts. Yeah, he hated me, and that's actually why we broke up when we were in high school, because I was quite a bad guy in high school as well. So when we got back together, I had to deal with all that again, and I had to now prove myself again to the family. And then they found out I had been in rehab. Fuck. And that was it. Now it was, it was pandemonium for about 3 or 4 months. But because I was honest and I didn't lie about one single thing, there was no question that they could throw at me. There was no stone that they could turn over and to find out something. I think the guy was trying to find out if I had murdered someone or whatever, because obviously there was nothing to find. I had said everything. I sat down and I said, right, here it is. I'm an open book. And that has kept us together, you know. She's been and she's sitting over there. She's been a rock for me during this time. You know, there's been good times, there's been bad times. But the drinking is not an issue. You know, she's not an alcoholic. But if she's with me and we're out and we go to dinner or whatever, it doesn't even come up. You know, we just drink apple tarza, whatever. It's not even a subject that gets brought up. In the 3 years that I've been sober, my life has moved on to the point now where socializing and doing things with people it's not an issue about drinking. My friends know, everybody knows. They're sitting around, they're having their bras, everyone's cracking a beer open, and I'm sitting there with a passion fruit and water. My friends have been wonderful. My partner has been wonderful. No one makes me feel uncomfortable about drinking. Because the moment people start getting sketchy in front of you and stuff like that, now it becomes a problem. Because it's not a problem for me anymore. I don't drink. It's just that. It's just part of my life. I don't drink. Doesn't mean don't invite me somewhere. But you have a beer, and the moment it starts getting a little bit out of hand, and people start getting a little bit fired up, and the tequilas are starting to flow, we say, cheers, guys. We'll catch you later. And we go home. Because I'm not on that same wavelength anymore. And I don't want to be on that wavelength anymore. I have been there. I have done it. I've got my Springbok colors for partying. I do not... It's not like I'm missing out on anything. I don't want to wake up with a hangover the following morning and go and pick up my son reeking of whatever. It's just over for me. When I went into the rehab facility, that for me was the day. I had thrown the white flag up. I said, "You won. I give up. I'm gonna stay sober now." Guys, yeah, so I may have left, like as usual, a whole bunch of things out because your train of thought goes in a different direction when you actually start speaking. But I just want to say that I am truly very, very, very lucky. I honestly, when I went into treatment, when I asked for help, if someone had said to me on the day that I walked up there and said, "Come and have a look here in this crystal ball. I want to take you 3 years ahead. I want to show you what your life is going to be like in 3 years' time," I would have said, "You lying." When that lady there read the promises, every single thing in those promises happened to me. It is not a joke. It doesn't come overnight. It doesn't happen easily. I have worked hard. Okay, it doesn't come. I handed it over to my higher power. That's the one thing for sure. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I've learned to deal with disappointments. If a disappointment comes my way, I say, right, that door is closed because another one is supposed to open up somewhere else. This is just not the direction I'm supposed to go right now. It's channeling me that way because I'm going to go that way now. Okay, so I don't give up. There's a part of you hands over to your higher power, but the rest of you have got to get up in the morning at 4:30, and you've got to get on site at 6 o'clock, 6:30, and you've got to work. And sometimes I've worked 26, 27 hours working on a project because my higher power is not going to do that for me. But what my higher power did was gave me the project to do. Okay? But I've got to work at it. All right. So the promises happen. And if they happen to me, it can happen to anybody. Because I was a complete and utter write-off because of prescription medication and alcohol. I was a prisoner in that. And I've come out of it, and thank my higher power, I'm sober today. And now, I said the last time when I finished my last share, I'm going to try and get to year 4. And if I hit year 4, then I'm going to try and hit year 5. Thanks.